They thought a farm couldn't fight back. But when a power-hungry HOA queen declared war over the scent of hay and clucking hens, she didn't expect hidden cameras, forged maps exposed, and a dog named Moose. This isn't just a feud. It's rural revenge, and it's going public. I never thought moving out to the countryside would put me on some HOA dictator's warpath, but then again, I never expected a woman in a cashmere sweater set and $1,000 sunglasses to treat the scent of hay like chemical warfare. It all started after I left Austin for good. I'd had enough of meetings, deadlines, and endless commutes. I used to be an engineer, good one too, but the city life had worn me down to a nub. So when I found this small farm just outside of Oak Hills Reserve, a gated community that practically oozed HOA money and manicured blandness, I didn't think twice. 12 acres of land, a fixer-upper farmhouse, a busted old barn with potential, and most importantly, outside of any HOA jurisdiction. I moved in spring with the smell of wildflowers thick in the air and the kind of silence you don't get unless you're miles from anything artificial. I built a coop for my chickens, rebuilt the fencing by hand, and even bought a compact tractor. A few neighbors waved from across the road or when they passed in their SUVs. Most kept to themselves, which suited me fine. That is, until she showed up. Her name was Karen Davenport. I met her on a Sunday afternoon while I was stacking hay near the barn. She pulled up in a pearl-white Lexus SUV and stepped out like she owned the road. She had a gift basket with local jams and a bottle of sparkling cider. Looked like something curated by an overpriced realtor. Her smile was just a little too wide, a little too forced. "Hi, I'm Karen, president of the Oak Hills Reserve HOA. She said it like I should clap. "Andy," I replied, wiping sweat from my brow. "I live here." She glanced around like she was inspecting a motel room. "So rustic. Charming. I hope the animals don't keep you up at night. Chickens, right?" "Yep, chickens. Goats, too. Tractor's a bit louder than them, though." Her face twitched. "Well, we're a quiet, upscale community. The residents moved here for peace and aesthetics. The scent from your farm may drift. Just something to keep in mind." Her tone had shifted from sugary to syrupy, thick with judgment. "I'm not part of your community," I reminded her. "This land's private and outside the HOA." She blinked, smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, sure. Boundaries can be complicated. Enjoy your day." She left without another word. I figured that was it. She was nosy, a little entitled, but mostly harmless. I was wrong. 3 days later, I got a letter. Not from a government agency, not a bill. No, it had the HOA's logo on it. It said my livestock odors and industrial-level equipment were disturbing the visual and olfactory harmony of Oak Hills. They asked that I remove all animals, limit tractor usage to non-disruptive hours, and consider landscaping adjustments to better blend with the neighborhood aesthetic. I laughed. Then I threw it out. But 2 days after that, a white van pulled into my driveway. The guy said he was from the county's environmental inspection unit. Someone had filed a complaint about animal waste runoff and pest potential. He found nothing. My coop was spotless, my feed sealed. But he said he'd be back for follow-up. That week I had 4 different inspections. Health department, zoning, fire marshal, even one guy with a clipboard who just stared at my barn and muttered about structural visibility from arterial roadways. All of them told me the same thing. Someone from Oak Hills HOA had contacted them. That's when I realized this wasn't a coincidence. This was a campaign. I installed motion cameras, 5 of them covering every entrance, the barn, the coop, even the mailbox. I wasn't paranoid, not yet, but my instincts were telling me this wasn't over. It got weirder. My Amazon orders started disappearing, packages torn open. I once found a half-eaten protein bar where my gloves should have been. One morning, I stepped out to see a pile of what looked like lawn clippings and chicken feathers dumped near my fence. Another time, someone left a plastic bag hanging from my gate filled with rotten eggs and a note. "This is what you're doing to our air." Then came the fake smiles. Neighbors from across the road, people I'd never spoken to, began waving, overly polite. One woman in tennis gear brought me cookies. They were burned, and I'm pretty sure the icing spelled out "move." Another jogger stopped and asked how much longer I plan to operate a commercial farm here because we have property values to consider, you know. The final straw came in the form of an unsigned note in my mailbox. The envelope was scented, yes, more scented, like lavender. Inside, written in an aggressive cursive, were 8 words. "Leave now, or we'll find a way." I didn't leave. I built another fence line instead, and I started recording on everything. I used to think that HOA letters were just passive-aggressive reminders about lawn height. I didn't know they could be weapons. About a week after the lavender death threat note, I received a thick envelope in the mail. Legal stationery, embossed seal. The whole thing smelled faintly like someone spritzed it with expensive perfume to hide the stench of bullshit. Inside was a letter from Oak Hills Reserve Legal Division. Apparently, Karen had escalated from strongly worded paper to official threats. The letter stated that my land, effective immediately, fell under the extended buffer jurisdiction zone of Oak Hills Reserve HOA. That term did not exist, not in zoning laws, not in land use codes, not anywhere except apparently in the wet fantasy dreams of Karens with too much power. They included a map as supporting documentation. If I hadn't been so angry, I might have framed it. It was a masterpiece of fraud. My 12 acres had been magically colored in the same tasteful beige as their gated McMansion kingdom. Their boundary line bent like a cartoon arm to wrap around my property. I wasn't even mad at first. I laughed so hard coffee shot out of my nose. Next morning, instead of laughing, I drove to the county land records office. The clerk, a middle-aged guy named Phil who wore a bolo tie and looked like he had been bored since the Clinton administration, squinted at the map. "Son," he said, tapping the paper with the back of his pen, "this is not even a good forgery." They didn't match the font. I could have kissed him. I made certified copies of my deed, my property survey, and the official zoning map. I even had Phil sign a notarized statement that my property was outside any HOA jurisdiction. Felt good to have paperwork on my side. That night, just as I was unloading feed bags from my truck, I heard tires crunch on my gravel driveway. Karen stepped out, armed with a leather portfolio, heels sinking into the dirt like justice itself was rejecting her presence. "We need to talk," she said. "No," I answered. "You need to leave my property." She ignored me, flipping open her folder with this smug flourish like she was about to drop a constitutional amendment on me. "As you can see," she chirped, shoving the forged map into my chest, "your land is now part of Oak Hills Reserve's buffer zone. This means farm animals are a violation of Section 12. I didn't touch the paper. "That's not what the county says." Her smile didn't slip, but her eyes twitched. "You can fight this, but you will lose." She turned, heels wobbling, and said over her shoulder, "Your presence threatens the aesthetic integrity of our community." I stared at her taillights until they disappeared down the road, and I swear even my chickens looked offended. The next morning, the harassment changed tactics. It wasn't just letters now, it was people. Tennis moms jogged by in coordinated outfits, making loud comments like, "Ugh, the smell." My eyes are watering. The HOA is doing everything it can. One woman held her nose dramatically and asked, "Do your animals even have vaccinations?" "My kids have allergies." A man walking a golden retriever stopped to let his dog shit right on my driveway, then gave me a thumbs up and said, "Consider it compost." Later that week, I found a group of residents standing on the shoulder of the road pointing at my property like tourists at a zoo exhibit. Karen was there too, leading the tour, waving her arms as if presenting Exhibit A, the rural scourge. That night, graffiti appeared on my barn wall. Farmers lower property values. I power washed it off, jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. 2 days later, another envelope arrived, this time from a law firm, heavy paper, gold stamp. They demanded that I remove all livestock, agricultural structures, and machinery within 30 days, or the HOA will pursue legal remedies including removal by force. I was done playing defense. I scanned every letter, photographed every bit of graffiti, documented every inspection, every coincidental encounter, and I sent all of it to a lawyer. Her name was Hannah Brock, a property rights attorney with the energy of a bulldog on espresso. After reading the letters, she looked up and grinned. "Congratulations," she said. "You're being harassed by amateurs." I didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. Because the moment Karen realized intimidation wouldn't work, she escalated to something else. Sabotage. If someone had asked me a month earlier whether a suburban HOA would try to sabotage a farm, I would have laughed. Not anymore. What started as letters and complaints evolved into something sharper, like Karen had switched from petty harassment to tactical warfare. It began with a letter from the county building department. Thick envelope, red stamp, permit revoked. I'd spent weeks restoring the old barn, replacing rotten beams, fixing the roof, even putting in new wiring. Now the county claimed I failed to submit structural modification forms, and that construction must stop immediately. I drove down to the municipal office in person, documents in hand. The clerk scanned the notice, frowned, and called someone from the back. After a few minutes, a man with a shiny badge and a receding hairline appeared. Inspector Randolph. He didn't bother hiding his irritation. "Mr. Miller, the HOA board alerted us to unauthorized structures." "I'm not part of their jurisdiction," I said, fighting to keep my voice calm. He shrugged, like my property rights were merely an inconvenience. "They expressed concern. We respond to concerns." Except later, after some digging, Hannah discovered something else. Randolph had done paid consulting work for Oak Hills Reserve, and not long ago. Suddenly, the revoked permit didn't look like a coincidence. I installed additional cameras, 8 in total, motion-activated, capturing every angle of the property. I had the place wired like Fort Knox. Less than 3 days later, they paid off. Just after midnight, the barn camera picked up movement near the coop, flashlight beam, slow and deliberate. Someone was inside the fenced area. I watched live on my phone, heart pounding. A person in a jacket and ball cap knelt beside the feed bins, unscrewed a small container, and poured something into the bucket. I couldn't see the face, but I saw the body language. Quick, frantic, paranoid. I sprinted outside with the spotlight and my dog Moose, a big Anatolian shepherd who considers himself the sheriff of the property. By the time I got to the coop, the intruder was already sprinting toward the road. Moose barreled after them, barking. The person tripped, churned through mud like a frantic baby deer, got up, tripped again, and scrambled over the fence, tearing their jacket. I didn't sleep at all. My hands were shaking too hard. At sunrise, I checked the feed. A strange chemical smell hit me, sharp, metallic, bitter. Moose sniffed it and whined. I dumped everything out and cleaned every bucket. I didn't know what the substance was, but I knew one thing. Someone had tried to poison my animals. That evening, I walked into the coop and froze. 17 hens, dead, lifeless, scattered like broken leaves. My throat locked. These weren't just chickens, I'd raised them from hatchlings. They knew my voice. They followed me around like toddlers with feathers. I wasn't proud of the sound that came out of me. Grief mixed with rage into something primal. The next morning, a white van pulled up. The driver wore khakis, a polo with a county logo, and a lanyard that said, "Environmental Inspection." He didn't ask permission before walking my property, taking samples from the ground and snapping images on his phone. "Who requested this inspection?" I asked. "The HOA," he answered without hesitation. That was a lie. I could see it in his eyes. I snapped photos of him, his badge, his license plate. When he realized I was filming, he hurried to his van and peeled off so fast he nearly hit the ditch. Hannah later confirmed the badge was fake. The van belonged to a private compliance contractor. Translation: they hired a random dude to play inspector. 3 days later, Karen showed up, not sneaking around this time, but marching straight toward my gate with files under her arm and a bruise on her cheek. Her arm was bandaged. Mud still clung to her shoes. Moose trotted beside me, tail wagging, proud of his handiwork. She pointed at him. "Your animal attacked me. You trespassed." "I was inspecting," she snapped. "You were committing a felony." She didn't flinch. "I'm filing a report. That dog is dangerous. He needs to be put down." I stared at her, stunned. She poisoned my animals, trespassed on my land, then had the audacity to blame my dog for defending our home? She lifted her chin. "This is your last warning. You can either comply with the HOA or we will remove the problem permanently." So I gave her my answer, silent, wordless. I turned my security monitor toward her. The monitor was playing the video from that night. Her face, her clothes, her hands pouring poison into the feed. Her hate dissolved into fear. Karen backed away, shaking, climbed into her luxury SUV and sped off. I emailed the footage to Hannah with one line: "Time to burn the whole HOA down." I don't know how Hannah does it, but the woman can go from coffee casual to legal shark in under 5 seconds. After I sent her the footage, she called me 30 minutes later, fired up, focused, ready to make Karen regret every breath she'd wasted trying to ruin my life. "We're done reacting," she said. "Now we go on offense." The first thing we did was file a restraining order against Karen Davenport, listing trespassing, attempted poisoning, and property sabotage. We attached the security footage, time-stamped and crystal clear. You could see her pour the substance into the feed. You could see her panic when Moose gave chase. You could see her fall face first into the mud like the damn villain in a low-budget horror movie. Next came the formal complaint to the sheriff's office. Hannah made sure every statement was tight, legally sound, and fully documented. We delivered printed stills from the footage, a full transcript of her voice from prior HOA letters, and even audio of Karen threatening to remove the problem permanently. No wiggle room left. Then came the civil suit. We filed a multi-count claim against Karen and the Oak Hills HOA. Property damage, criminal trespass, fraudulent misrepresentation, harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation. That last one? Yeah, because while Karen was playing sabotage artist by night, by day she was poisoning my name in neighborhood Facebook groups. Hannah printed out screenshots. Posts like "local man illegally housing livestock within HOA boundaries" and "possible animal neglect happening near Oak Hills. Contact the board for more." She wasn't just annoying, she was slandering me to create a paper trail that she could weaponize. But things really shifted when we got a call from Gordon McNair, the former HOA secretary. Guy was in his 50s, sounded tired of everything, and said, "I think it's time someone knocked her off that throne." He met us at a diner off the highway, nervous and looking over his shoulder like he expected Karen to drop out of the ceiling. Over cheap coffee and a sad-looking omelet, he gave us gold. He'd kept everything. Emails, internal memos, private group chat logs from the HOA Slack channel. Yep, they used Slack. Of course they did. In one message, Karen instructed the board to flood the farm with complaints to create legal pressure. In another, if we make it miserable enough, he'll give up. And the smoking gun? An email to the HOA legal contractor with the subject line, how to redraw boundaries for enforcement. She'd literally tried to gerrymander my land into HOA jurisdiction. We subpoenaed every HOA member for depositions. Half of them didn't show. 2 hired lawyers. One flat out cried and said, "We thought she was just bluffing." The media caught wind. Local news did a 2-minute segment. Farmer battles HOA over alleged sabotage. They played a blurred clip of the video, Karen fleeing my property covered in mud and feathers. My inbox exploded. People started emailing to tell me they'd been harassed by HOAs too. Some offered to testify. Karen? She went quiet, real quiet, until she tried one last move. A lawyer, slick, probably expensive, filed a counterclaim. Said I'd provoked Karen, that my dog was vicious and uncontained, that my unauthorized farming activity was hurting property values. I expected this. Hannah expected this. What Karen didn't expect was the fact we were already one step ahead. We had audio recordings. On the 3rd inspection she sent, I'd recorded her arguing with a fake inspector caught on camera and mic, telling him to create a foundation for a shutdown. Her exact words. So we leaked it. A clip hit social media. Karen, standing beside my fence, whisper hissing, "Just say something's non-compliant, he won't know." Her voice, her face, her damn HOA windbreaker. By nightfall, the video had over 200,000 views. Local Reddit forums turned her into a meme. They called her Agent Karen of the HOA CIA. From that point forward, we didn't hear a peep from her team. The court accepted our suit and scheduled the hearing. I looked at Moose lying next to the fireplace, his tail thumping as if he knew. "Buddy," I said, "it's time to take them all down." I'd never been in a courtroom before that week. Never needed to be. My life had been quiet. Hardware stores, feed deliveries, late nights tinkering with irrigation lines. Not subpoenas, not court reporters, not bailiffs announcing, "All rise." But there I was, sitting next to Hannah at the plaintiff's table in a packed county courtroom, wearing the only suit I owned and watching Karen Davenport strut in with a team of 3 attorneys like she was walking into a real estate convention. She wore charcoal gray, conservative, respectable. Her hair pulled back so tight it looked like it hurt. The bandage on her wrist was gone, but the faint scratch on her cheek remained. She'd probably left it visible on purpose, trying to sell her role as the victim. The judge, a silver-haired man named Judge Alston, didn't look amused. He went through the case summary, then looked at Karen's side. "You're the defendant, Mrs. Davenport?" "Yes, Your Honor," she replied with syrupy confidence, representing Oak Hills Reserve Homeowners Association as its elected president. He raised an eyebrow. "Your attorney's brief says this was a personal matter, not HOA action." Karen blinked. I was acting in the best interests of the community." He cut her off. "We'll see." It was the first of many cracks in her story. Hannah opened with a calm but devastating statement. "This case isn't about landscaping disputes or neighborly disagreements. This is about power, abuse of it, and a woman who used a neighborhood association as her personal weapon." Then came the evidence. We presented footage, time-stamped, high resolution, from the night Karen trespassed and poisoned the feed. We showed the forged map she'd submitted to the county. We played audio from the fake inspection, her voice urging a contractor to make something stick. And then we brought out the HOA emails, courtesy of our new favorite witness, Gordon McNair. Karen's attorney objected at almost every turn: relevance, context, chain of custody. But Hannah had prepared for every challenge. Every objection was overruled. Every document had a signature, a timestamp, a corresponding record. Then it was Karen's turn. She took the stand with the polished poise of someone used to being obeyed. She told the court she'd merely wanted peaceful coexistence, and that Mr. Miller's aggressive agricultural setup posed a danger to the Oak Hills Reserve community. She claimed she only visited my property that night because she was concerned about animal welfare. She actually said I heard the chickens crying. I could see one juror stifle a laugh. Karen denied poisoning the feed, denied authoring the fake map, denied any knowledge of the HOA chat messages, even when shown screenshots of her name, photo, and typing timestamp. She said someone must have used her account. That's when Hannah dropped the final nail. The HOA contractor, under oath, admitted that Karen personally paid him to check on the farm. Not HOA funds, her personal card. She signed the agreement as K. Davenport, and in a text exchange he'd saved because of course he had, she wrote, "Don't worry, I'll handle the fallout. Just say you were following HOA orders." Karen's face tightened. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear. She shook her head. Then came Moose. No, not the dog himself, but his vet records, behavior evaluations, and a glowing character witness from the local animal control officer, who'd responded the night of the incident and testified that Moose had acted appropriately and showed no signs of aggression. The officer called him a good boy, swore to it, under oath. The courtroom chuckled. The jury smiled. Even Judge Alston cracked the faintest grin. When it was time for my testimony, I told them everything. Not dramatically, just facts. The months of fake inspections, the stress, the night I found 17 of my animals dead, the moment Karen tried to blame my dog, the way she weaponized an entire neighborhood. I kept it short, clear. When I stepped down, Karen's attorney tried to rattle me in cross-examination, asked if I hated HOAs, if I'd provoked her by deliberately creating a farm adjacent to a luxury community. I said I didn't create the farm, I bought it. It's been here longer than the community. The only thing new here is Karen. That landed. The trial ran 5 days. On day 4, reporters showed up. Local news outside. A court sketch of Karen slipping in mud circulated on Twitter like wildfire. The caption read, "Control, Alt, Delete." By day 5, Karen looked exhausted, pale. Her hair had come loose. Her smile was gone. And then Judge Alston called both parties forward. He didn't even wait for the jury. "In light of the overwhelming evidence," he said, "and in the interest of judicial economy, I'm entering summary judgment for the plaintiff on all counts. Ms. Davenport, you are hereby found liable for fraud, harassment, trespass, defamation, and attempted animal cruelty." Karen didn't react, just stared ahead, jaw clenched. "As for damages," the judge continued, glancing down at the paperwork, "Ms. Davenport is ordered to pay Mr. Miller $720,000 in compensation. Additionally, a hearing will be scheduled to determine if criminal prosecution is appropriate based on the evidence presented." Silence. Then someone in the gallery gasped. Karen's lawyers began packing their papers like their lives depended on getting out of that room. Hannah turned to me and whispered, "We just broke their queen." Karen didn't show up at the restitution hearing. Maybe she thought skipping it would somehow lessen the blow, or maybe she just couldn't stand to sit in that room again, with reporters lurking outside and ex-neighbors whispering her name like a curse. Either way, the judge proceeded without her, cold, efficient, no ceremony. We were awarded full compensation, $720,000. The amount covered legal fees, lost income, emotional distress, and the value of my livestock. Hannah said it was the largest private civil judgment against an HOA officer in county history. But that wasn't the end. Within days, the board at Oak Hills Reserve convened an emergency meeting, technically a special session per their pristine leather-bound bylaws. Every resident was invited. Most came just to see the show. I wasn't there, of course, but Gordon was, and Gordon had a phone. He recorded the whole damn thing. The HOA president's seat was empty. Karen's chair, once a throne of smug micromanagement, now sat unoccupied like a tombstone. One board member opened by reading the court ruling out loud. Another read aloud parts of the HOA charter Karen herself had once weaponized, particularly the clause about removal of leadership due to criminal misconduct or ethical violations. It wasn't a vote so much as an exorcism. Karen was officially stripped of her presidency, her voting rights, her access to HOA funds, and in one delicious twist, banned from participating in future HOA governance for life. A week later, a moving truck pulled up to her house. Curtains were drawn. No one waved goodbye. Her home hit the market within 48 hours. Asking price was reduced twice in the first week. Word got around. Fast. Local blogs picked up the story. They didn't hold back. One headline read, HOA Queen Dethroned After Chicken Massacre. Another ran with from community leader to defendant, the fall of Karen D. My personal favorite came from a satire site. Woman tries to commit property-based coup, loses to chickens. I went into town one afternoon and passed a group of high schoolers spray painting a mural behind the hardware store. I stopped when I saw it. Cartoon chickens in battle armor, one holding a HOA scum sign, another riding a cartoonish moose with glowing red eyes. They waved at me. Is that your dog? Sure is. Legend, one of them said, nodding solemnly. Back at the farm, peace returned in pieces. No more fake inspections, no more strangers pacing my fence line with clipboards and smug faces. No more graffiti, poison threats, or lavender-scented ultimatums, just wind, dust, the sound of real life, chickens clucking, goats bleating. Moose snoring under the porch like the overworked hero he was. I rebuilt the coop from scratch, painted it red, stronger fencing, automated lights and water systems. Every bit of it legal, permitted, and very much protected. I even stenciled a small phrase onto the barn door, never blink. My reminder. Neighbors started talking to me again, the quiet ones, the ones who'd kept their heads down while Karen ruled. One guy brought over a six-pack and said, didn't like her, never did, just didn't know how to stop her. Another, a young mother with 2 toddlers, left a pie on my porch with a note that said, thank you for standing up when we couldn't. Gordon came by too. He brought documents, real ones, showing the official dissolution of Karen's influence. And a smile. She thought she owned the neighborhood, he said. Turns out she just leased fear. I asked him what he was going to do now that he was off the board. He laughed. Get a damn chicken, maybe 2. A few months passed and life fell into a rhythm again. This time, my rhythm. Morning chores with coffee in hand. Fence walks with Moose. Evenings in the barn fiddling with small repairs just because I could. I started a small YouTube channel mostly for fun, called it Farmer vs. HOA. I never expected it to take off. But the first video. This HOA tried to erase my farm, racked up over 200,000 views in a week. People flooded the comments with their own HOA horror stories. Some were hilarious, some depressing. One guy claimed his HOA tried to fine him for having a mailbox that looked too curious. I didn't know what that meant either. Soon I started posting weekly updates. Sometimes it was just farm stuff, installing a solar pump, teaching my goat not to eat shoelaces. Other times I shared insights about property rights, how to fight back legally, and what to watch for when someone in a power suit starts sniffing around your fence line. People started calling Moose the enforcer. Someone even mailed him a custom embroidered vest. He hated it, of course, but wore it once for the camera. One afternoon I got an invitation, handwritten even. It was from the new president of Oak Hills Reserve, a young woman named Samira who'd won the election by a landslide. She invited me to their spring festival, said they were trying to rebuild neighborly ties. I almost said no. Then I remembered all the ones who hadn't supported Karen but were too scared to speak. I figured, why not? So I went. Set up a little farm stand under a pop-up tent. A few dozen eggs, some honey jars, a couple of homemade soaps I'd learned to make during a particularly boring winter. No hard sell, just presence. I expected polite nods, maybe a few passive-aggressive looks. What I got instead was a line. People smiled, chatted, asked about the animals. A kid in a sun hat gave Moose a sticker shaped like a badge. Someone even brought up Karen, but only to say, hard to believe we let her run the place. It felt peaceful. A little after noon, two boys came running up to the stand and handed me a folded piece of poster board. It was messy, clearly done with markers, but I recognized the figures instantly. One was me holding a chicken, the other was Moose with a superhero cape. At the top, in crooked red letters, it said, "The farmer won.